She thought she was alone on that plane. She was wrong. It was the kind of flight that should have been routine, a late-night departure, a nearly empty cabin, and a woman who just wanted to get home. But somewhere over 30,000 feet, in the dark silence between two cities, something happened that she will never forget for the rest of her life. Her name was Mara, 38 years old, a nurse from Portland, Oregon. She had just finished a 4-day work conference in Chicago, and she was running on 3 hours of sleep and cold coffee. She booked the last available seat on the 11:45 p.m. flight to Portland. The gate agent told her with a tired smile that the plane was almost empty. Only 11 other passengers had checked in. Mara settled into row 14, window seat, pulled her jacket over her shoulders, and closed her eyes before the plane even finished boarding. She did not notice the man who sat down 3 rows behind her. She did not notice that he had boarded last, just as the gate doors were closing. She did not notice that he had no carry-on luggage, no bag, nothing. Just a man in a gray jacket, sitting very still, staring straight ahead. The plane lifted into the night sky over Chicago. Below, the city glittered and then disappeared into cloud. Most of the passengers were already drifting to sleep. The cabin crew dimmed the lights and retreated to the front galley. Mara slept for almost 2 hours. She was pulled awake, not by turbulence, but by a sound. A low sound, almost like someone talking to themselves, very quietly. She opened her eyes, and for a moment, just listened. The cabin was dark. The hum of the engines filled the silence. And then she heard it again. Not talking, counting. Someone in the rows behind her was quietly counting, repeating numbers. She told herself it was nothing. A nervous flyer, maybe. A prayer. She reached for her phone to check the time. 1:17 a.m. They were somewhere over Montana, still 2 hours from Portland. She turned slightly in her seat, just enough to glance back casually. The man in gray was wide awake. His eyes were open and fixed on the back of her seat. Not the ceiling, not the window. Her seat. Mara felt her breath catch in her throat. She turned back to face forward. Her heart was moving faster now. She told herself she was being irrational. She told herself she was overtired. But something in her chest, the part of her that had worked 10 years in an emergency room, that part of her was not convinced. She pressed the call button. A young flight attendant appeared from the front galley within a minute. Mara kept her voice low. She said she just wanted some water. But while the attendant was there, Mara asked casually, how many passengers were on the flight tonight? The attendant smiled and said, 11. Mara nodded and said nothing else, but she had counted the seats earlier. She had seen 10 passengers settle in before she fell asleep. That meant the man in gray had boarded after she stopped counting. She pulled up the airline app on her phone, still in airplane mode. She opened her notes app and began typing quietly what she had observed. Gray jacket, no luggage, counting quietly, eyes open, watching. She is a nurse. She is trained to document. She is trained to stay calm under pressure. But she is also trained to recognize when something is not right. 20 minutes passed. The plane was quiet. And then, the man stood up. He did not go toward the bathroom. He walked slowly up the aisle. Mara did not turn around. She watched his reflection in the black window. He stopped at her row. He stood there for a long moment. And then he said quietly, "You are the one who called the attendant." It was not a question. It was a statement. The man said nothing for several seconds. Then he sat down in the empty seat across the aisle, flat and certain. Mara kept her eyes forward. She said yes, she wanted some water. The man said nothing for several seconds. Then he sat down in the empty seat across the aisle. She could see him now in her peripheral vision, hands folded, breathing slowly. He said, "I am not going to hurt you." People say that when they want you to stay calm, Mara thought. He told her his name was Daniel. He told her he had not slept in 4 days. He told her he had bought the ticket with the last money in his account. He was going back to Portland, to his daughter, whom he had not seen in 3 years. And for the next 45 minutes, as the plane crossed the dark mountains, Mara listened. She did not reach for the call button again, because what he told her was not a threat. It was a confession. A story of losing everything. His job, his home, a battle with his own mind, and a decision he had almost made 1 week ago that he could not bring himself to say out loud. When the plane landed in Portland at 2:41 a.m., Mara did not rush off the plane. She sat with him until the cabin was empty. She wrote a number on a piece of paper, a crisis line, a shelter contact, and her own number, just in case. He took it and held it like it was the most valuable thing he had been handed in years. She never saw Daniel again after that night. But 3 weeks later, she received a text from an unknown number. It said simply, "I made it. She showed us my daughter today." Mara saved that message. She still has it, because sometimes the darkest flights carry the people who need the light the most.